Time now for the exchange. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has issued an extremely rare admonition to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed over the Ethiopian war. Joining me from Oslo, Norway, to discuss it is Berit Reiss-Andersen, chair of the committee. Berit, thank you so much for being with us. So now, here we are, and the war in Tigray has been raging on for over a year. Does the committee now regret choosing Abiy Ahmed as a Nobel Peace Prize winner?
The committee stands behind the decision made in 2019 of rewarding the Peace Prize to Prime Minister Abiy, and on the basis, on the picture you painted so efficiently in your introduction. Since then, the situation has changed. There is a war in Ethiopia, and the Nobel laureate is very unprecedented participant in that war as a prime minister. And that is very unfortunate that the Peace Prize laureate is participating in a war, but we could not foresee this situation, and I would also like to underline that the situation in Ethiopia is very complex and complicated.
I 100% agree that, it's not as if you have a crystal ball. Of course, you could not have foreseen what would have happened in Tigray and what Abiy Ahmed would go on to do. That being said, though, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, I think it was roughly around a year and a half after coming to power. And of course, as you know, Ethiopia is a very complicated country just in terms of violence and in terms of ethnic divisions and that sort of thing. Given that you awarded him a little over a year after coming to power, do you think that perhaps you jumped the gun and he was given the award too soon?
This is a question often placed to the Nobel Committee: have we given prizes too soon? I would like to reverse that question. If we were always sure of the outcome of a peace effort, the Nobel Peace Prize wouldn't have been as relevant as it in fact has been through 120 years. The Peace Prize is a reward for a success in a peace effort that Prime Minister Abiy definitely could claim, but also an aspirational prize towards continuing the path of peace. And the Nobel Committee making the statement we have made is not passing judgment on the war in Ethiopia, which ones of the parties are right or wrong. But what I am emphasizing is that carrying the Peace Prize is a very heavy cloak to carry. Mm-hmm. And it rests a certain responsibility on Prime Minister Abiy in contributing seriously to peace and entering negotiations instead of using military means only to solve the situation in his country.
A lot has been made of the fact that, of course, Abiy Ahmed did something unprecedented when he came to power, and that is the fact that he made peace with Eritrea, and that was huge, and there's been a lot of focus on that. However, at the time when he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, domestically there were a lot of issues. For example, at roughly around the same month, I believe, when he was given this award, there were reports of police in Addis Ababa essentially arresting protesters during demonstrations, journalists continually being harassed, internet shutdowns, that sort of thing. Was all of that taken into consideration when he was given this award?
Well, the negotiations of the Peace Prize Committee are absolutely confidential, so I cannot respond on the different elements that were taken into consideration. But what I can say is that the reasons we gave for the Peace Prize was also a great reformation of civil society and building civil society and enforcing democracy in Ethiopia. and strengthening human rights. And Rome was never built overnight, but we emphasized these reasons when we awarded the prize. And I would also like to add that when we do make our decision, we are supported by consultants from international institutions and international universities. It is not only the subjective ideas of the members of the committee.
Okay, so there is a clearly a lengthy process in terms of choosing Abiy Ahmed or someone like Abiy Ahmed for this honor. The Nobel body just issued a very rare statement calling on Abiy Ahmed to end the war, saying that he has a very special responsibility to do so. What was interesting about the statement is that it came over a year after this war had actually started. Why did the body wait so long?
Well, first of all, we only emphasized that President Abiy Ahmed, not in his role as president, but in his role as a Peace Prize laureate, had an extra responsibility of contributing to peace. Why we came with the statement now is because the war has developed. It is a pressing humanitarian situation in Ethiopia, and it is an unprecedented situation that a Peace Prize laureate, so short after receiving the Peace Prize, is in fact involved in warfare. And we felt, even though we usually do not comment on the situation that is the background for a Peace Prize, that this unique situation needed some comment. As we also commented on the situation when Aung San Suu Kyi was challenged for her role in the Rohingya situation in Myanmar.